Hello and welcome everybody to Flicker Effect. This week, lots to talk about. We have news about the Superman shoot. There's lots of set photos coming from that. Acolyte, of course, this week to talk about, which aired last night, episode 5. We'll be getting into that later in the episode. We've got new trailers, lots to discuss. Let's get into it now. But first, by the way, I'm Dave Lott, and I am not alone. Joining me this week is Bobby Jackson. How's it going, Bobby?
Good. You are not alone. Like Michael Jackson once said, I'm here with you.
Thanks. I almost sang a little bit just then. Like it was like an
I
automatic
almost did
reaction.
too, but
And
it
I
would have
just stopped
sounded awful. And
myself.
I didn't, I didn't want to do that to the anyone that's listening or watching. I just didn't want to put them through that pain. So I stopped myself.
Yes, as did I. Um, but yeah, by the way, we are recording and streaming this live on YouTube on June 26th, 2024. So yeah, if you're watching us on YouTube live right now, welcome. And if you're watching us or listening to us in the future, yes, we do stream these episodes live on YouTube. So look out for those. And with that, unless you have anything else, I think we are going to get into it.
I do have something
Oh, you
else.
do? Let's
I
please
do.
do
I know we
tell.
got a lot to cover, and we'll definitely get to that, you guys. But there's something specific I wanted to ask David about, and that's the fact that you went to two different things within the past week. You're wearing one, and you went to one last night. So spill the details.
I am wearing one. Yeah, last week, I'm a big Blink 182 fan and went to see Blink last week. They actually opened their tour, their new summer tour here in Orlando. So yeah, that was last week, and
And it looked like you were super close. Either that, or you have a really great camera lens that gets very close up
no,
photos.
that was my good old Pixel Fold taking those photos.
Nice.
Yeah, no, we were in the pit, and
Okay.
so got there a little early to get in line for the general admission pit area. And I mean, the pit for their tour isn't huge, really. I mean, if you're in the pit, there is no bad spot
Hmm.
whatsoever. And I mean, I was even going into it going, I'm just happy to be in the pit. If I'm in the back of the pit, it's fine. But got there in a good spot in line. So I was like, all right, fine. So, I mean, immediately went to my spot and basically never left my spot in the pit. And I was like 3 people
Nice.
back from basically from the barricade. So, yeah, it was a good spot.
So you didn't have to go to the bathroom or anything? Like you stayed there for the whole 3 hours and just never moved?
Yeah, no, I never moved.
Yeah.
um, I was fine. I remember, I think I made a point to hydrate really well throughout the day. And
Hmm.
then when I got there, like in line, I never really had anything to drink. And then once I got inside, I really never needed. Well, that's not true. I did like halfway through the show, I got really thirsty and ended up getting some water. But
No.
yeah, that did happen. Now I remember. But that was it. I never had to go to the bathroom though,
Yeah.
so
Nice.
that was good. And yeah, went to that last week. And then last night, I think you're talking about me seeing Les Mis.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen a few musicals. I love musicals, but I haven't seen a ton. And Les Mis is one of those where it's like, I know the music super well. I've seen the film version that came out however many years ago that was. I've seen the I don't know if you ever saw there's like it was the 20th anniversary concert, I think they did in the O2 in London. They did like a concert version of Les Mis. I've seen that,
Hmm.
but I'd never actually seen it on stage live and in person. So that was a first. So that was good. So obviously the touring version was here in Orlando. So
Speaking of that, real quick, I saw something that is at one of my local, um, I don't know what you call it, performance centers, I think. And it was I actually didn't see it per se. I saw a poster for it on a bus stop, and it was for Clue. Like I didn't know that there was a Clue um, play or whatever. I was like, that'd be
Yeah.
interesting to kind of see and see how they do that. And you figure out who done it, so to speak. And I was like, I didn't know that was a thing, that Clue is a performance that people can go see as a play. So I was like, oh, I might be interested in that.
I didn't know that, but I want to. It's funny you say that. I want to say it was maybe in Orlando recently or something. Like I saw a friend post that they saw it, and I remember
Hmm.
thinking, "Oh wow, Clue! I should have gone to that." But
Yeah.
yeah, no, I'm not really familiar with it at all, so I don't really know
Yeah.
what that is like. But yeah, I haven't seen it, so
Yeah. I'd have
basically
to,
we're in.
I'll look into it a little bit more. If I end up seeing it, I'll report back.
All right, good to know. All right, well, lots to talk about, so let's get into it. To get things started, as we mentioned at the top, and as we have all known probably for a little while, anyway, the James Gunn's Superman film is very much in production. And more recently, they have started some on location shooting, it appears in Cleveland. And a lot of set photos are out there. So a lot of people have thoughts. It gives us more looks of what Superman looks like in the suit. We also get a couple photos of Lois. And yeah, actually, we have some of them here now, I think. Let's see if I can make that happen. So, yeah, Superman on set shooting in Cleveland. And I'm curious to know, Bobby, what you think of these. We've talked about these a little bit off air, but not much. Did you get any impressions on these? Oh yeah, like this one. Yeah. Oh. Oh yeah, you did comment on this. I remember.
Now it feels like it's a little dated. So outside of that, everything else I'm fine with. And, there's lines and stuff within the suit that
Right.
it's fine. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't move the needle one way or the other for me. But the rest of the suit looks really good. So it was just that one thing, and I'll get over it once I'm actually watching the movie and really into everything else that's going on. But just from a still photo and just from an initial impression, everything looks good except for I wish there was no more underwear, but it is what it is.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things I get it from a comic book purist kind of perspective of like, just go for it. Just put him in there. That's Superman. But
Hmm.
come on, it's a different day and age, and it just looks. I'm with
Out
you.
of place.
It looks out of place. It looks odd. It's the kind of look that you have to imagine that somewhere in the movie somebody's going to comment on him, like, or does he just not even comment on it in the film? That'd be a good bet, I think. But
I would could see it going either way, and it would not surprise me if they did comment on it, just because it's it is sort of outdated in this sense, and someone would be like, why do you look like it'd be a joke. It could be a Lex Luthor joke or something or
right.
whatever. But I could see someone making commentary about it. But um, one of the other pictures that you didn't have, I don't know if you had a chance to see it, was David Cornsweet as Clark Kent.
Oh
Did you
yes,
have a
I
chance to see
did see
that?
it. I don't have it here to show, but that's right. I forgot that there was also a photo of that. Um, it was one of those photos too where it's like quick, random set photo, not really
Yeah.
seeing what it's going to look like on film. I was kind of like, my reaction was, I'll wait to see what it looks like on film. Was basically how I felt about it. Like, it wasn't bad. It looks like Clark Kent, but
Yeah.
and
I
that's
thought
what.
it looked pretty good.
Oh, okay, cool.
And you know why? Because for me, I felt like when I'm only doing a slight comparison into Henry Cavill, and when Henry Cavill looks like Clark Kent, he still looks like Superman
Mm,
with glasses on.
yeah,
And the David Cornsweet as Clark Kent, he looked a little more nerdy, and his hair was sort of pushed up and done up a little bit differently
yeah.
in a way that made him look different. And I was like, okay, I like that he actually has a distinguishing difference in his look between Clark Kent and Superman. So that's what I liked about it.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. I mean, again, I wish I could see it right now. I don't have it on me to show, but yeah, I mean, it looks fine. It looks like Clark Kent. And kind of with the same with these Superman photos, really, my judgment will be once I see the movie. I mean, it's fun and all to see more photos of him in the suit, but for one, you have to imagine
See
also
if you can
after.
can this be seen?
Oh
Let's
yeah,
see. There we
yeah,
go.
there it is. It is a pretty nerdy looking Clark Kent.
Yeah.
The hair almost. I think that was the thing that maybe threw me off was the hair was almost seemed a little too much. It was like, how will that
Hmm.
look on film? But again, I'm not going to judge it based on that random set photo. But I was going to say, even with the Superman suit, especially, I could see where like in terms of maybe the brightness of the suit, like after the film is shot and color graded. I mean, I think a good reference would be that a photo that James Gunn officially released of him in the suit. Which, if you look at that compared to these set photos, it looks way darker
Hmm.
than these set photos. These set photos look very bright, and I'm not against the very bright, you know, kind of more comic book version of Superman, but I have to
Mm-hmm.
imagine it's going to be a little more subdued on film, or at least,
Right.
yeah, on the big screen when we finally see it. There was
Yeah.
also a couple shots of Rachel Brosnahan as Lois. So I think, I mean, it does, right? For those listening, he's not actually in the movie, at least as far as we know, but somebody in the foreground definitely looks like him. Um, but yeah, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I think these are the first like photos we've seen of what she looks like as Lois. I mean, not that she has to wear a special suit or anything. She just looks like Rachel Brosnahan with a, maybe different hair. Yes, I would agree. Yeah. some type of aircraft. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's right. It's, you know what's hilarious? I didn't even notice those hands. Oh no, I think it's a soldier behind the rubble. Because actually, I have another shot that also includes Perry White, played by Wendell Pierce, and oh, okay, and yeah, the that you can see the soldier better standing there behind the rubble. So I think that's who's. It did kind of look like hands sticking out of the rubble in the other photo, but anyway, yeah, lots of good set photos from Cleveland,
Yeah,
and there's been even more stuff that you
yeah,
could argue is spoilery almost. Not really, but I mean, it depends on how much you want to know before seeing the movie. Like,
yeah.
yeah, a photo I saw today that I haven't included. You know, something else is just, I will say, happening to Superman,
Is
and
it the one with Rick Flag Sr. in the picture?
I think so. I think that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah,
So again, I mean, I wouldn't really call them spoilers, but
right.
if you really want to go into Superman knowing really nothing, then hey, don't look at the photos. There's not a lot though.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, lots of photos coming from set for Superman. So just wanted to talk about that really quick. But while we're talking about DC, oh, sorry, I thought I did something. So while we're talking about DC, we have also some news coming from Warner Brothers regarding a show that we've known is going to happen, and that is a Green Lantern show. It's going to be called Lanterns, but now we officially know it's been picked up for an 8 episode order, and it's going to be considered an HBO original. Which in a lot of ways doesn't really change much. It was going to be a Max original, I think, originally. Please forgive me. And yeah, that among some other shows that HBO has revealed are going to be technically HBO originals now. So we have that news regarding Lanterns. There's also, like, I think, a brief kind of like description of what the show is. I'll read from Variety really quick. The series will follow Hal Jordan and John Stewart, 2 members of the Green Lantern Corps, an intergalactic team charged with defending a specific realm of the cosmos from evil through the use of rings that bestow an array of superhuman powers. Per the logline, new recruit Stewart and Lantern legend. Sorry, New recruit Stewart and Lantern legend Jordan are 2 intergalactic cops drawn into a dark Earth-based mystery as they investigate a murder in the American heartland. And I know many have commented on the fact that it seems like maybe a fitting pick to have Chris Mundy as showrunner of Lanterns, considering he also was involved with True Detective Night Country, given the description of the show. Any thoughts regarding Lanterns? I mean, there's not really much to go on. Basically, we just know the show is officially happening as an 8 episode season, and it's going to be on HBO. That's really the news.
It, I'll add to that. Who's also part of that team is Tom King, who's done comics. You might know his name from comics. I think he did the Supergirl run that going to be part of the DC universe with that new Supergirl that we have of what's her name, Millie Alcock.
Yeah, exactly. Millie
Yeah,
Alcock. Yep.
I think he wrote that line, and someone else who's not unfamiliar with the superhero, so to speak, genre, which is Damon Lindelof,
Oh
because
yeah,
his last thing that he did was wasn't it Watchmen, I believe, on HBO.
yeah, I think so.
So, good pedigree. It seems like it could be a really good series. And I would say the only thing that gives me slight pause, and I do mean slight, is just the fact that these are, as it says, intergalactic cops. And so to take intergalactic cops and put them on an Earth based series, it feels like you're kind of boxing them in and they can't really cut loose in a way that you would in a Green Lantern movie, that you would hope to see them really using their powers and stuff. But
Right.
I feel like we'll I feel like these three will know exactly what they're doing and really give us some cool set pieces and some interesting things to see with their power sets and stuff like that. And the impetus for them even being on Earth, knowing that they're intergalactic cops, means to me, and I'm have no basis on this whatsoever, but it to me would mean that maybe one of their own has been killed, and they're looking into seeing how that happened. Because otherwise, I don't know why they would be on Earth, the two of them,
All right.
to look into something Earthbound. Other than it could be some ancient kind of magical type thing that's killed one of the lanterns, and they're looking to investigate or something. But yeah, outside of that, everything else sounds really good about it. And being that it's an HBO series now, and within that article, they mentioned the fact that bringing it as an HBO series means they kind of want to bring back or at least remind people of the prestige in which HBO stood for as a brand, and having things that were labeled as HBO made that well known to people, like, oh, this is an HBO series. This, what was the old slogan? It's not TV, it's HBO.
Yeah.
So it's something like that.
Something like
So
that.
I
Yeah.
think that's pretty smart. Yeah.
No, I agree. I mean, HBO, at least for me, has definitely been held in that regard. And, that's why when we talked about House of the Dragon last week, it was like, it feels like in terms of actual HBO originals, at least I haven't been watching many. There hasn't been as much out there, it seems. And it'll
Hmm.
be nice to have this. And yeah, I mean, they talked about some other stuff among announcing this that's going to be now considered HBO originals, like the Harry Potter show, which we're going to talk more about in a second. The It prequel series, which I think is called, was it Welcome to Derry?
Welcome to Derry.
Yeah. So those will be HBO originals as well. But I'm looking forward to it. I everything you've kind of said in regards to like maybe concerns based on what we've been told so far, I do get. I hadn't really thought about that,
Hmm.
but I mean, obviously it's so early yet. We'll hold judgment until we actually
Oh,
get some
yeah,
more, of
of
course. And
course.
I know you
Yeah.
will as well. But yeah. Speaking of Harry Potter, so yeah, among other all this news, yeah, they have announced that the Harry Potter show that we have been hearing about, which is going to basically, I guess, follow the books season by season, now has a showrunner and a director for some episodes anyway. The series is named, and I'm reading from the Hollywood Reporter right now. The series is named Francesca Gardner as the writer and showrunner, and tapped Mark Malloyd to direct multiple episodes. Both are Emmy winners for HBO's Succession. Gardner as part of the show's producing team, and Millard as both director and producer. So the HBO series coming to HBO now has a showrunner and a director and a writer, and basically that show is just moving along. Is kind of where we are right now.
Yeah, having that type of writing staff is bodes well for this series to me.
Yeah.
And I one of the things I definitely know I'm looking forward to is Harry telling Ron to F off, because that's that's a pretty big thing in the Succession world, if anyone's watched that series.
Yeah.
But no, but seriously, I do think that having a good writing staff is important and very crucial to these things, and they seem to be treating it as such. I don't know if they named anybody from the Welcome to Derry writing team or who will be show running it, but so far it seems like they're treating these things with the proper respect that they need to be treated with in order to make a good product. And I think that for me is one of the things that makes me look forward to this new Harry Potter series. And I know you and Michelle, we've talked about this in the past, aren't so hot on the idea of them doing a series for Harry Potter. I'm looking forward to it just because I kind of want to see it in a slower paced, season by season, book by book kind of way, and see how that kind of plays out and what other things they can do, and just with visual effects nowadays, what else they can do with it as a series compared to the movies that we had, which are great. But I'm kind of curious to see what this iteration will end up looking like.
I guess I should be clear though. Like, I'm not. I'm not against this. And in fact, there was a time I remember a while back. I remember talking about this on the podcast. This was a long time ago. I remember saying specifically, I just wished from the beginning that, and hear me out here because I loved Harry Potter movies, but the fan of the books, as I am as well, like wishes that maybe from the beginning they had done this as like an HBO level series, and each season be a book from the series. And I was like, then you'd have so much more time to tell the entire story that we got from the books and flesh out the characters even more. And wouldn't that be great? And then, like, after the film series is long done, and, we've got a few Fantastic Beasts films under our belt as well, they decided to do this. And I was like, wow, that's exactly what I asked for. Like they are doing quite specifically, now that it's going to be considered an HBO original, almost exactly what I requested. And hearing this news about the Succession team being involved is, I can't really think of that as anything other than great news. I think the part of me that's still just curious how I'll feel about this is the part of me that now loves Harry Potter so much that I'm like, but we have the Harry Potter. I have the Harry Potter in my mind that is the live action Harry Potter series. It's the movies, right? And now we're going to do it again with a different cast. And I'm like, in one sense, that'll be cool. And in one sense, I don't know. It's like, it's one thing when you, like, if you go to Wizarding World of Harry Potter at the Universal Parks, it is modeled obviously after the films that we've had already. And then we're going to have this new live action version. And I guess in the end, it's just another version. It's another telling of the same story. And that's all it is. But I don't know. It's like if you told, like, I mean, and I think people have talked about that maybe they should do this, but we use Star Wars as an example. If Star Wars ever like retold the Skywalker saga with a completely different cast, I mean, we're talking about the Star Wars fandom. People would lose their minds. And I'm not saying that people should lose their minds, and I don't think people should lose their minds over this. Basically, it's complicated is my feeling on this, but it's complicated pushing toward, I'm very much looking forward to it, but it's also, there's a part of me that feels like it's complicated. I don't know. I feel like I'm not making sense, but maybe I am. I don't know.
Well, it's complicated, so
It
it's
is.
not supposed to make exact sense. But I get what you're saying. I guess for me, it feels far enough removed from those movies
Mm,
that I'm interested in seeing a new iteration of it and okay with it. Unlike something like, even though it's still kind of far enough removed from it, I saw something. This was probably maybe about a month ago that they're going to remake the Maze Runner,
I
and
did
I
hear
think
some
this,
about that. Yeah.
yeah, and I'm like, well, I don't know
Didn't
why.
you
It
just
doesn't
make
feel like it.
those?
Yeah, it doesn't feel all that far removed from it, and you're talking about doing another movie series, like trying to kick that off again. So it's like you're not even trying to change the format of it in a way that would be interesting to me, comparatively speaking. If all of a sudden they said, all right, guys, um, based off of the success of these books and these movies, we are now going to, on HBO Max, give you a Hunger Games series. And I'd be
Mm,
like, huh, that would be interesting as a series where you take your time with it and really explore these characters a little bit more. And,
right.
that I could see that. But now if you just said, oh, we're just going to reboot the Hunger Games series and start with the movies again, I would be like, what? Like, why? And at least in these, we're still getting more stories, and like, even if they could do something like that, really, because they announced that, oh, I can't think of her name. Is it Susan Collins? I can't remember the author's name of the Hunger Games, but
Oh,
she's doing
yeah, something like
another
that. Yeah.
novel. Yeah, so she's doing another novel, and they've already set a date, I think, for the next movie or something close to that. There
Yeah.
where there's a
They
new date
basically,
for it.
I think, announced the book and the movie like the same day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and it's supposed to take place during the time that Haymitch was in the game. So
Right.
it's like, okay, they still have movie stories to tell, which is great. But that series almost kind of can sort of lend itself to doing a TV series that could explore other years within the games. It doesn't have to be a complete retelling of the story, but I think it would just have to be something that's compelling, because that could probably get kind of I don't know what the phrase would be for it, but it could probably be a little wearing to watch a series where people are dying all the time. That's the main
Yeah, this is
subject
true.
the series, and you're watching that season after season. I think that might be a little much, but yeah, I could at least see how it could lend itself to it. And so that's where, going back to the whole point of the Harry Potter series, I can see how it lends itself to being able to be as a series, doing these stories again for maybe a whole new generation and an older generation that wants to kind of relive these things again.
Yeah. And again, overall, I'm looking forward to it. But then I think when we first heard about this, my one of my first thoughts was like, but you also have a fandom that seems so invested in Harry Potter as it's already been presented to us. And couldn't you have done an HBO level series about something else in this world? But
Mm,
then I also
right.
remember that in a lot of ways they have tried to do that with the Fantastic Beasts films, and it hasn't been great. But to that, I would also argue that maybe the Fantastic Beasts films are trying too hard to still connect to the Harry Potter story, and just
Mm,
try to do something new. I don't know. I'm not saying I'm the right person to do this, but it's again kind of like we said earlier. For me, it's complicated. I'm looking forward to it, but I'm curious to see how it plays out. I'm super fascinated to see how it all looks. Like will the castle just be the same castle and we'll just have a new story with different actors, or is it going to be like a total reboot kind of thing? I I don't know if they've said. I have to imagine it's probably going to be the same castle. But
I would think so.
I, but or do you just completely reboot it? Like, hey, this is a completely different version of the story with a different looking Hogwarts, and I don't know. It'll be
Mm,
interesting to see how it plays out.
question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With that, we've got some trailers that have dropped over the past few days that we wanted to talk about really quick. The first being for a film I am going to go ahead and tell you right now, before this trailer even dropped, I was very much looking forward to, because I'm a huge fan of this director. And that director is Robert Eggers. And he has made a version of Nosferatu. For those of you who don't know who he is, he brought us The Witch, Lighthouse, and more recently The Northman. The Nosferatu. Oh, what's that?
No, I was laughing because I didn't know exactly where you were going with that. You're talking about Nosferatu, and you're like, for those who don't know who that is, or said that, I thought you were going to say
Oh,
who
about
Nosferatu.
Nosferatu.
Yeah,
Um,
but go ahead.
no. I'm talking about Robert Eggers, the director.
Yeah.
But yeah, he brought us those films. I'm a fan of all of them, really. And I really enjoyed The Witch, and knowing he was going to make his own version of Nosferatu sounded really interesting. So they dropped a trailer for this, and I'll go ahead and say that I think it looks fantastic. It's a perfect, and also as teaser trailers go, it's a great teaser trailer. Doesn't show too much, but it shows just enough to get a sense of what the feel of this movie is going to be like. And it looks like a Robert Eggers movie. Like, it
Mm,
looks very dark. If I have a complaint though, it's the release date. Like, it's this movie's being released on Christmas Day,
mhm.
which is, I get it, but I don't know. Like, the part of me that is just a fan of Halloween and that time of the year, and I'm saying that as
Right.
a Floridian where it's hot as hell here in the fall. I wish it weren't, but as someone who's a fan of that atmosphere and that time of the year, like, I would love a movie like this around then. Like, and I'm not saying I wouldn't go see this on Christmas Day. And the fact is, if it's being dropped on Christmas Day, most people are probably, well, not, I don't know if I'd say most, but a lot of people are going to see it right after Christmas. And at that point, okay, Christmas is over. But I don't know. There's a part of me that's like, really? We're putting this out on Christmas? Like,
Mm,
of all days? But I mean, that's a nitpicky thing. It's not going to affect my enjoyment of the movie. It's just That's just me wishing they put it another time of year. But I think the movie looks great. What did you think?
Similar. To me, it felt like it fit the mood in which it should be going for. It just the tone and overall aesthetic, everything looked the way you would expect it to look based on it being a movie about Nosferatu. I just was like, oh, okay, and it has classic sort of, at this point, classic kind of Robert Eggers look to it. So for me, I really was just kind of like, all right, I already kind of knew that it was going to look this way, and it looked really good, and make me anticipate the movie that much more. I would say the only thing that I kind of bumped up against, whereas you bumped up against the date, the thing that I bumped up against, oddly enough, was the minute and the moment that Willem Dafoe came on screen. For whatever reason, I don't know why. It took me out of it for like a split second when he popped up on screen. And Willem is a great actor, and I have no doubt that he'll be great in the movie. But it was weird for a second to see him, and then actually for another second, it was kind of oddly strange for me to see. Oh, I can't think of his name. The
Oh,
other actor that's in it, Nicholas
well,
Holt.
Nicholas Holt's in it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
and I think it's because I'm so hyper aware of those guys at this point that um I kind of like when Robert Eggers. I would say he doesn't do this as much anymore because he's sort of leaned into more of the familiar, but he would have people that you didn't really know well in some of his stuff, and it was almost like a showcase of new actors in that sense. And now it's kind of like, okay, he's starting to use some of the guys he's used to and familiar with that he's used in other projects, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. And but I just said that it really kind of just jarred me for a second when I saw both of them, because I maybe forgot that they were in the movie,
Hmm.
and so that kind of just was like, oh, and then I settled right back into it. And I know once I sit down to actually watch the movie, it won't make a
It
bit
won't
of
matter.
difference. But yeah, but seeing the trailer, it did kind of throw me for a second.
Yeah, I mean, I guess when The Witch came out, his first film, correct me if I'm wrong, uh,
Mm-hmm.
really all of the actors in that movie were not, I wouldn't say there were no names, but they weren't really
Right.
known by most general audiences. I think that was Anya Taylor-Joy's first film, I'm pretty
Yep.
sure. Now, since then, he's definitely used actors like Robert Pattinson and Willem
Mm-hmm.
Dafoe, Anya Taylor-Joy again in The Northman. Yeah, I guess I didn't really think about that as I watched it. And yeah, for those who don't know, I mean, yeah, our lead actress in this is Lily Rose Depp. And as you mentioned, Nicholas Holt's in the film. Aaron Taylor Johnson, you see very briefly in the trailer. He's in the movie as well. Emma Corrin, Ralph Ineson, Simon McBurney, and as we've already talked about, Willem Dafoe. So, sounds like a good cast. The movie looks great. I can't wait. And this
Yeah.
is a movie normally I would see the day it opens, but then with it opening on Christmas, we'll see if I'd actually see this on Christmas or not. If I don't, it will probably be like the day after. This will be a Boxing Day
Mm.
movie for me.
You know, it says Christmas, but will it be Christmas or will it be the day before Christmas? Yeah,
Then
Christmas
that's a
Eve.
good question with the way releases are. I think Christmas is
Yeah.
on a Thursday this year. So, not that that probably matters as much for a holiday week kind of release.
Right.
But yeah, will it get its first showings on Christmas Eve or will it really be Christmas?
Hmm.
Good question. Another trailer that we got this week. I just watched this one like about an hour before we started this record session. And that is for a film from Amazon Studios, and that is Red One, starring Dwayne Johnson and Chris Evans. And I will read a quick description from Deadline. The story will pick up after Santa Claus, codename Red One, is kidnapped. Subsequently, the North Pole's head of security, played by Dwayne Johnson, must team up with the world's most famous bounty hunter, played by Chris Evans, in a globe-trotting, action-packed mission to save Christmas. Bobby, I'm going to start with you really quick. What did you think of this trailer? Or is this interest you? Is this your kind of film?
Uh,
This is the polar opposite film from the one we just discussed. So
quite literally,
yeah.
North Polar
see,
opposite.
see what I did there?
um, yeah, exactly. Yeah, okay, so first of all, music selection I think was terrible. It was like a Jay-Z song, and it was like, what? This is a Christmas movie, and Jay-Z is the song selection. Towards the end of the trailer, it does get into some kind of a Christmas song. I forget which one, and then it starts to feel a little bit more like a Christmas movie. But when it started off, and I can't all of a sudden I can't think of the actor's name who's playing Santa Claus, but when it first starts off, I was kind of like, oh, this looks trashy. Like this does not look like anything I want to be associated with at all. And as the trailer started to go on a little bit more, and you kind of get a sense of some of the other aspects within the movie, like there's this polar bear that's CGI in it that talks, and there's other creatures and stuff in it. And I was like, okay, I think I kind of see what they're going for here. And while I think that this movie won't be good, I have a feeling it might be entertaining, if that makes sense. And I don't know for sure, but I just found myself after watching this trailer interested in it, just interested in it, and that maybe I would go see this in the theater when it comes out, just based on it looking like it might be silly and fun and a little bit of like an entertaining movie with a lot of actors in it. Because as it gets closer to the end, there's like a lot of different cuts with different people in it that I recognize as actors in it. I was like, it's a pretty stacked cast for this movie. And I don't know, even still, based on what I saw in the trailer, how their budget got up to 250 million, other than the fact
What?
that The Rock got paid. The Rock got paid 50 million for this movie. But yeah, I don't see all 250 or 200 on the screen. But
Yeah.
yeah, it still looks like it might be entertaining, a good family fun movie to go during the Christmas time season when it comes out. So yeah, and there was one I will say, I got to say this. There was one moment within the trailer that I did laugh at out loud, and that was when they were doing the slap game thing with the uh who was that, Krampus,
Oh yeah, it was
was it?
Krampus. Yeah.
Yeah, Krampus, and he, you know, him and the Rock get into it, and
Mm-hmm.
then he was like, the Krampus puts his hand up against the Rock's face, and you can hear the Rock sort of say, "Oh my god!" It was just, it made me laugh the way he said it, because he
Mm.
was like, because his hand was as big as the Rock's head, and
Right.
so it was just kind of this funny thing. But I was like, okay, I can see this might be a little chill, a little cheesy, but it still might be kind of fun. So overall, I didn't think I would have any interest in this movie, and the trailer made me actually interested in it.
Well, it's funny you mentioned the music. I'll say that first because, so like I said, I didn't watch this trailer until like an hour ago. Um, but earlier today, at one point, I came across the trailer as I was prepping stuff for the show, and I wasn't able to watch it. So, but some of it started playing without sound, and I kind of saw the beginning, but I couldn't hear anything. And I remember thinking, as I saw the beginning of the trailer, I was like, "Oh, this looks like it could be interesting." That was my immediate reaction. And I even think I saw like a still photo, like a promo photo of Dwayne Johnson standing there in front of Krampus or something. And I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool looking. All right. But then I watched the trailer, and my very first thought was like, oh, this music was not what I was expecting. This seems odd. And so it's funny that you brought that up, because I would have to agree. I don't know about the music for the trailer. Anyway, uh the movie, I I once I watched the trailer for real, I don't really know if this really is doing it for me. um, Cause yeah, especially we get the polar bear and it taught talking polar bear. I mean, I get that we're talking about a story about Santa Claus, so I mean, I get the comments to what I'm about to say, but I mean, I don't know. It was like I think I was going into it maybe with this one dynamic kind of mindset, and then I watched the trailer and I just like, yeah, I think this is gonna. It's border, like you said, it looks borderline kind of cheesy, but for me, it looks like it's gonna lean too far on the cheesy side of things. But it's always nice to have new fun holiday movies to watch, and especially when you have kids and you're looking for those kind of things to watch with the family. It'll probably be something that'll be enjoyable for the family to watch. But I don't know. Watching this trailer, as it ended, my reaction was like, oh, I don't think this is what I was hoping for. Not that I really knew what I was hoping for, but
Hmm.
yeah, I would say
Yeah.
at this point, if I were in or out, I'm out on this one based on the
I would
trailer.
say that probably is most people's reaction to it,
Is
and
it? I haven't really seen any reaction.
no, I haven't seen any reaction to it either. But I just get the feeling that would probably be the reaction most people would have,
Yeah.
and and I don't blame people because it does look like it's very silly, over the top. But for whatever reason, it kind of, I think, hit just the right. It resonated just in the right tone for me that it was like, okay, I am interested enough in it to go see it probably, and make a judgment call at that point. But oh, the actor that I was thinking of, who's
Oh,
playing Santa Claus, is J.K. Simmons.
yeah. Sorry, I meant to say that
Um,
too. Yeah, it's J.K. Simmons.
yeah. So yeah, we'll see. I don't expect much from it, and maybe that'll be to my benefit when I go see it, or maybe it'll just still live down to those expectations. But we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Um, but yeah,
That budget is out of control, though.
I did not know about that budget. That is news to
Yeah.
me. That is, I guess that's not surprising considering the cast and the effects. I guess I'm not saying it looks like it has that level of effects in terms of budget, but again, the cast. I guess I shouldn't be shocked, but I did not know it was that high. That's crazy.
Yeah.
One last trailer to chat about, and this is a film from director Robert Zemeckis. It's called Here, starring Tom Hanks and Robin Wright. Correct? Yeah. Right. Hey. Um, so yesterday, I saw a still images as I think they were teasing that this trailer was about to come out, and then the trailer dropped. What today? I think. And for those who don't know, I'll read a quick description. This is from Variety, based on the graphic novel by Richard Maguire. Here tells the century-long story of a single house and all the different people who live there. The camera sits at a fixed angle for the entire 104-minute duration without moving. In another Forrest Gump reunion, the film's main couple is played by Hanks and Robin Wright. The movie's script is written by Zemeckis and Forrest Gump scribe Eric Roth. Yeah, when I first saw the still images, I think from this yesterday, and I knew you could tell from the still images, and I think they even said like it was going to involve like de aging and stuff, and I was like, I don't know. And I think that's all the images I saw from the promo, like was just the younger version of them. And it looks good. Don't get me wrong, but I was like, okay, what's this about? And then I saw the trailer today, and I will say, I was like, actually, okay, this looks like this could be pretty good. Maybe. Like, I know nothing about this book other than the description I just read. That is all. First time I've heard of this book. Know nothing about it. But I don't know. The trailer looked like the film is promising. And I'm all for movies that do something a little different. This movie is obviously doing something different with the way it's apparently going to have a camera in a single spot for the entire duration of the film and it never moves. And at first that may sound kind of boring, but at the same time it's different and I'm always interested in that. So I don't know. I'm curious to see more. And like right now, if I would say I'm in on this movie, I would go see this. What did you think of it?
Uh, I would say I'm on the fence right now.
Yeah.
It was weird because to me, so I kind of noticed that the camera was fixed, but I didn't really think too much about it. I didn't make comment on it in my head, other than I kept thinking, this seems like this is a one location type movie for most of the film, because they kept showing that family room, and then there'd be like different stuff happening within that one room. I didn't even realize there was different people. I just thought maybe there was more family, so I didn't realize that there was other people who have lived in this one particular house. In fact, I knew nothing about it until you just read the tagline for the description of the movie just now. So that now makes more sense, except for the fact that in certain shots within the trailer, they show like a period of time where there looked like there was dinosaurs, and then there was like a, I don't know, maybe Roman times or medieval times or something, but it just goes through time. So I don't know how it. I mean, I guess you could still have the camera fixed in one location as you're showing these different things, but yeah, I guess from that aspect, it will be interesting to see how it's done. And obviously, it's Tom Hanks, and I don't, you can't say he has very many misses on his resume. So I would go see it on the strength of that alone, just with Tom Hanks in it. But what has me kind of on the fence about it at all is that in the beginning of the trailer, there's a shot of them, and they're de-aged, and you can see that they're younger versions of themselves. But there's this shot when Robin Wright comes close to the camera, and she's kind of like standing there looking at the close. There's like a close-up shot of her at the camera, and I could see the visual effects of it, and it didn't quite look right to me. And then from that point on, whenever they would show them de-age, there seemed to be a little something off to me. Especially there was a couple times when Tom Hanks was talking in his de-age self, and it looked a little odd to me. So I was like, oh, I hope that's not distracting, or it looks better once I see the final product or final version of the film. Because right now, just in seeing the trailer, I'm seeing that maybe uncanny valley effect a little bit, and so that worries me. But outside of that, everything else about it appeals to me, and something that feels like I would really want to see it and see how it plays as an actual film.
Yeah, I know what you mean in terms of the visual effects. I mean, I noticed that too. Um, it looks solid for the most part from the little bit we
Mm-hmm.
see in the trailer. And obviously, I'll just be curious to see it in the full length of the movie to see if it's like really noticeable a lot where it just takes you out of the movie or not.
Right.
But I think that's always our concern at this point. Any movie where we know people are going to be de-aged. I mean,
Yeah.
there's definitely been movies where I didn't even cross my mind and I didn't even think about it, and the movie was over. And of course, I knew that someone was de-aged. I think a movie that comes to mind is like Captain Marvel and Samuel L. Jackson. For the most part, he looked pretty solid in that movie. I mean, nothing
Yeah.
crazy. And there's other examples as well. But that'll be annoying. It'll definitely take me out of the experience if it's like there's a lot of shots where like you described, like similar to when like Robin Wright gets close to the camera. It's like,
Mm.
oh, yep, I can see it, and that'll be annoying. But I think,
Yeah.
like you said, there's that stuff in the trailer with like stuff where the house didn't even exist yet. And I would imagine that in the context of the film, that's going to be like almost probably just a montage of stuff really fast. And really, the extreme majority of the movie is going to take place in this room, in this house. But yeah, you
Mhm.
get a glimpse of that in the trailer where it must be where that room is located. You'll see like a
Right.
dinosaur walk by, or
Yeah.
like
Exactly.
people building the first parts of the house for the first time and stuff. And I mean, yeah, I would imagine that's just going to be like a quick montage, probably opening credits kind of thing. Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, that is Here from director Robert Zemeckis. That comes to theaters on November 15th of this year. With that, it is time to move on to our last topic of the day. And of course, it is a Wednesday, so that means yesterday we got our most recent episode of The Acolyte over on Disney Plus. Episode 5 dropped last night. This is the first time for me. I didn't get to see it when it aired. Basically, I watched this one today because we were at Les Mis last night. But I made it without seeing any spoilers for the most part. I think I saw like one little thing before I watched it, but it wasn't really a spoiler for me. It could be for some people. But anyway, yeah, episode 5 of The Acolyte is out there. We've talked about The Acolyte on here so far, and I'll say for myself, if you haven't heard our thoughts about the show, for me, I am enjoying the show. um, there are definitely issues I've had with the show so far, mostly in regards to kind of just the way the story is being told with these really short episodes. And that would be probably the main biggest issue I'm having. And then other little things, but I'm enjoying overall seeing a different part of the Star Wars kind of timeline, and Jedi in a different era is interesting to me, and I've been curious to see where this goes. And I watched this episode, and by the way, we're going to talk spoilers for The Acolyte, so I guess that's our warning right now. We're going to be talking about spoilers for Acolyte episode 5, and obviously that means all the episodes that come before it. So if you haven't watched any of them, or if you haven't seen episode 5, you might want to stop and then come back once you've watched the episode if you're interested in checking it out. Episode 5 was something, man. um, it was it was it was something.
Something good, something bad.
It was something. It was overall something good. I enjoyed the episode overall. I thought really good action choreography in the episode. I mean, it really, if I have a complaint, it's going to be the same kind of complaint. I mean, this is like a 30-minute episode. This is the actual show is under 30 minutes without credits. Because I think when the credits started, I think I looked down at the time clock and it was like 28 or 29 minutes or something, right as the end credits started. But we talked off air like, oh man, this will be a pisser if we get like another flashback episode, especially the way that last episode 4 ended with that major cliffhanger, which I think we all
Yeah.
found pretty annoying. Like, I'm all for cliffhangers, but that was a bit
Yep.
much. And if we had skipped like an opportunity to see where that was going to go with a flashback episode, that would have been pretty infuriating. Luckily,
Yeah.
that was not the case. So right off the bat, I was happy. No, I really enjoyed the episode. I would say it's my favorite episode so far. Yeah, maybe still a little short. Maybe I wish this whole show was kind of told in a different format or something, either fewer episodes that were longer or just more fleshed out episodes or something. I don't know. But other than that, I thought the episode was pretty solid, and there's definitely some interesting little tidbits that I want to talk to you about. But what did you think of it?
I would have to echo a lot of your sentiments that you said earlier in regards to the show. For anyone who doesn't know my opinion about the show, I would say I echo a lot of what you said initially about the show up to this point. And to me, I think that yesterday's episode was way better than the last week's episode. And yeah, I would say that it's probably the best episode they've had so far. And that was in no small part due to the fact that it was a heavy action episode. It was a lot of emphasis on action within this episode, and so the action was great. On the other side of that, I did still find it a little bit frustrating of an episode, and maybe some of that is due to the episode length, but more importantly, I think it's due to some of the writing within the episode, because while the action was great, some of the stuff outside of the action kind of had me just kind of questioning some of the aspects of what has taken place in some of the previous episodes, but also within just the way that the story is being told. And so, if it was a mixed bag, I'm mixing it on the side of being more pleased with it than not, and sort of I wish at the same time there could be some congruency between the action and the storytelling, if they would both be up to the same level at the same time. It feels like sometimes the story and enjoying some of the writing more than some of the action, and then other times it's the action more than the story and the writing. So if they could just get both up to the same level at the same time, I'd really be happy. But that being said, overall, I am still enjoying this show as a whole. I like the fact that, at least for me, this is a story of Jedi and getting to see them on screen again. It feels like it's been a long time for whatever reason that I haven't seen Jedi on screen, but it's just being in this universe in this way. I'm enjoying, and that to me, I think this series, still at this point, 5 episodes in, is above Boba Fett for me, and maybe probably still above Obi-Wan. And I'd have to think about Ahsoka. I don't know. But yeah, either way, to me, this is still more on the better side than on the worst side. But we still have 3 episodes to go, and we'll see how it all kind of wraps up. But so far, yeah, I do think this was the best of the 5 we've had so far.
Yeah, again, not perfect. I mean, with the writing, I was gonna ask, but now I think I understand what you're getting at. I mean, for me, the writing is mostly an issue with there's still dialogue, and even in this episode, that's like,
Mhm.
this definitely could be better. But
Yeah.
and there's a lot of that in there's been a lot of that in this show so far. But I mean, yeah, for me, it's no contest that it's better than Obi-Wan, but I'm also just really not a fan of Obi-Wan. As I think I talked about recently, I tried starting to rewatch Obi-Wan and I almost couldn't do it. Like, which it was, I was like, oh, maybe it'll be better the second time. It was like the opposite. It was
Yeah.
worse. Yeah, Ahsoka, I don't know. Because Ahsoka was a mixed bag. Like, overall, I enjoyed Ahsoka, kind of. I didn't stick the landing for me, but there were episodes I thought were really good and then others that were not so great. So it would definitely be an interesting thing to think about after the Acolyte's over. But for now,
Yeah.
I don't know where I am in terms of like comparing it to that. And I'm still like, I wish, again, not that I'm going to wait for the rest of the episodes and then binge it, but if there were a show from Star Wars that I would just choose to binge watch and not watch week to week, so far it would be this one. The way they're telling it, it feels
Mhm.
like once it's all said and done, if it ends up being a good show when it's over, like it will have been nice to just watch it all in one sitting, like almost like a short story, a short story stretched over 8 short episodes.
Yeah.
Which is kind of annoying.
Right.
And there were things about the episode, as someone who is not as familiar with stuff outside of live action Star Wars, that I found a little confusing. And, I go online really quickly after I watch it and get very fast answers as to what's going on there. And I'm like, that's
Mm.
great. Like, for instance, him banging his helmet and his forearm, like, gauntlet thing on lightsabers and causing them to, like, short out. I'm like, I would imagine most viewers would be like me and go, that's interesting that he can do that. Why can he do that? Like, and I would imagine that even once this series is done, this season is over, that will never be explained in the actual show. And it's just one of those things that's kind of there for like fans that know what that is. You know
Mm.
what I mean? I mean, maybe
Yeah.
I'm wrong, but to me, in a normal show, not that, obviously a show is a story arc that usually is a story arc that carries across a season, right? So obviously you don't get answers to everything in every episode, but for me, normally in a show, there are certain things that if you're going to introduce something, you get some type of like answer about it within that episode. And to me, this was the kind of thing that would be like, normally you would have a Jedi or talking to a Padawan explaining like how that was happening or something. Or I have never, I haven't seen that metal used or whatever it's called ever. I don't know, something to kind of like hint at it. And there was nothing. And it's that kind of stuff that is to me kind of annoying about the show, if I'm making sense.
Mm, yeah.
Um,
You know, the thing about that too, which is hard, is that the thing that you're talking about is called cortosis,
right.
which allows it to interfere with a Jedi's lightsaber. Uh, the, the power of it to turn it on and off, it will disrupt that power and can block it. So it's hard to say how they could have done that in an organic way other than how you're saying it. But that would also have to be dependent on a Jedi knowing that it exists. And
Right.
I don't know how well known that is within what we have now as canon. There's some references to some books that have talked about it before, like Thrawn and also Dr. Aphra. But as far as within this time frame, I don't know how well known that would be around the galaxy. So it's like, well, you could say that maybe one of these Jedi had in training and studies learned about it and could have been on this mission and have spoke to it at that point, because you can write anything you want, so you could say there was a Jedi that knew knowledge of it and was explaining it when it happens to one of the Padawans or whatever. But yeah, I agree that if for anyone that's just sitting back watching and doesn't know what that is, it makes it hard, and it makes me wish, because I remember thinking even after the episode had aired, it was made me wish that they did something with this show that they do with Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon, where after the episode there's like a little tag on to where the producers and showrunners usually are talking about the episode in a brief couple minutes and
Yeah.
just certain things. And that would have been a perfect time for to have something like that where you could have someone explaining exactly what was going on there and how that was pulled from some of the books and stuff like that. But I don't know. It's just stuff like that. I think that to me shows that while these things have big budgets, they're not necessarily produced as well as they could be.
Absolutely. And you're right. I hadn't really thought about doing like kind of like inside the episode kind of thing after a show like this, because I don't think they've done that at all with any of the Star Wars
No,
shows.
no.
And yeah, I always enjoy watching that after, Game of Thrones and now House of the Dragon, and this would be
Yeah.
another perfect show to do that with. And it's
Last of
just,
Us. I mean,
well, there's like nothing involved with producing that. You do quick interviews with your
yeah.
showrunner and your writer, and maybe with some actors here and there. It's super easy. Like, come on.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, the episode didn't hold back with deaths of Jedi. Some of it, it's like I appreciate that the show is being, I guess, somewhat unpredictable in that sense of like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
anybody could die, and these Jedi, these characters that we've been following so far in this show, who seem like, okay, these are a major part of the show, and we're going to see more of them. Like, to have them just suddenly now gone, it's like, oh wow, I wasn't expecting that. Especially, was it Daphne King's character? Was it Jackie?
Jackie.
Yeah, that death in particular, I was like, oh man. I think I
Yeah,
reacted out loud to that one. I was like, I mean, because
I did.
also he has this cool move of revealing that second part of his saber right before he kills her. But yeah, that was, no offense to, what is it, Yord Fandor or
Your
Fandar or,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, his death too was like, but hers in particular, I was like, oh man, like I really wanted to see, I think, more fighting from her.
Mm.
Um,
I
but
was wondering too about that scene. Just because the way he kills her, he hits her with the lightsaber 3 times,
yeah,
almost in a triangle sort of formation of where it's done.
Uh-huh.
And I kind of wondered if he did that just to be like cool about it in the way he killed her like so quickly in succession like that,
Okay.
or did or is she of a species that maybe has like three hearts, and so
Totally could
to
be. I have
kill
no
her,
idea.
he killed her like that, in that way. So I was like, huh, that seems very uh not necessarily overkill, but it did seem like, yeah, you didn't have to kill her that bad, did you? Like
Right?
it was so bad. But no, I agree with you in that, because when this series was first announced and first was going to be shown, even within the trailers that we got, to me, I would always had the thought that anyone who's on the show has to die if he's a Sith, because there's in from the Phantom Menace where they said the Sith haven't been seen in a millennia. So I figured that anyone on the show would have to die, and then I didn't actually expect it in that at this point, because I think I had gotten used to Yord and Jecki, and I just figured that they would be, you know, throughout the series. So when they got killed off, I forgot that I really, had said everyone's got to die at
Right.
some point. So because I got used to these characters and I kind of got attached to them being within the show. So when they got killed off, I was like, oh, it surprised me, and I thought it was a good way in which they did it. So yeah, I felt like, yeah, I agree. I think them going for it in that way makes sense, and I think that they didn't hold back in doing so.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, we get the reveal of Kaimar. I think we kind of talked about who we thought this master was, and it
Mm-hmm.
indeed turns out to be Kaimar. And I'm curious how much you've thought about it, if at all, or how much you've dug into other theories of like now post episode 5, like, okay, is he actually Sith or is he not Sith? Even though he
Mm.
does deliver a line in this episode, but it's an interesting way he says it, and I'm still even somewhat confused about the choice of words in that writing, of the way he says what he says. Because I don't have it right in front of me. I was quickly just trying to see if I could find like a quote of that line. Because I think Master Saul like asks him like, "Who is he?" And his response is something like I don't have a name, but I guess it's something like to. But I guess Jedi like you would probably call me Sith or something like that. It's
Yeah,
not. It's very
yeah.
undefinitive. It's like it's weird. And in at first I'm watching the episode because I ended up seeing the episode twice because hey, it's so short,
Mm.
why not? And the first time I watched it, I was kind of like, okay, like he just straight up said it, I guess. But then I watched it
Hmm.
again and I'm like, well, did he though? Like, is he really Sith or is he not? Have you thought much about it at all, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, he says it. He says Sith. He says the word.
He says the word, yes, but
And so to me, it almost doesn't matter how he meant it because he said it. And so now, if Soul goes back and talks to the council, he has to say that he called himself a Sith, or he
right,
said that we would say that he's a Sith. So now it's there. So how do they at that point handle that in regards to canon? And then when 100 years from now or whatever, it's brought up again in the council and not having been seen for a millennia. So I reserve judgment on that until we see how it all plays out. But it does leave me questioning all that because of the fact that he does say it. So if there, unless there's some sort of way where there's something in canon that says in order to be considered a Sith, you have to be blah blah blah. This is what a Sith is. This is the
right.
definition of a Sith. Then I don't know how you kind of get out of that, other than Soul doesn't make it back to the council. I could see a situation to where, as that episode ends, we have May taking over the the role, not the role, but she basically switches places with Osha because Osha is knocked out. So she cuts her hair with the lightsaber, changes clothes to impersonate May or Osha.
Hmm.
So now Osha is going with Soul, and maybe there's an opportunity there in which Osha ends up killing, or May ends up killing Soul before they get back to um, the base for where the Jedi are.
Right.
And so then that kind of could answer that. But in doing so, and that would be at, let's say, episode 6. Where do you go with episode 7 and 8? Are my questions. If Soul's gone and it's just Chimera and May and Osha, it's I don't know where that story goes. And I I I feel like there's another piece in this that, if I'm remembering correctly, um, there's another Jedi that looked like they were on the planet as well,
Hmm.
or very quickly. Because and this isn't spoiling anything; it's actually in the trailer where there's like a quick shot of Venestra Rowe, and she's using her lightsaber whip,
Yeah.
and I looked like she was on that planet, maybe, or Force the
Could
Green kind of planet or
could
something.
be, but it could be somewhere else.
Yeah, it could be somewhere else. But yeah, so clearly there's more there, obviously. I mean, we have to have more episodes, but
Right.
I just don't know how within that whole Sith aspect how that gets cleaned up and taken care of to where it doesn't break canon. Which at this point, I mean, they've broken so much canon, even just within, or even if they haven't broken it, they've most definitely bent it pretty hard because there's a lot of stuff even within Obi-Wan series as itself is I'd say bends it pretty much if it not
Oh,
breaks it.
I full heartedly agree with you. I mean, I've said that before as well. Like the whole like how Obi-Wan and Darth Vader's like relationship is treated in the original trilogy and how it's been kind of bent by things like the Obi-Wan series and stuff. I yeah, absolutely.
And Leia and Obi-Wan's
And Leia, yep, and
relationship.
Obi-Wan, totally. Yeah, I'm with you. It's going to be a withhold judgment until the whole season is over, and I wish more people would do that.
Yeah.
But that is what it is. But you know, it definitely appears that they are aware of what they're doing. I think a lot of people just think that they just aren't even thinking about it and they just don't care. And I'm sorry if you
Hmm.
think that you're out of your mind. I'm like, it's clear that they're aware of that they're either going to stick to canon and they're going to find a creative way of sticking to canon by the season's over, or they're aware of what they're doing and they're bending it in the best way possible without like completely breaking it. I
Yeah.
don't know. That's how it seems to me. But the stuff with his character is certainly interesting in this episode. I mean, again, though, it's not like he just says I'm Sith. Like, it's still just very
Hmm.
curious the way he says it. Like, I guess you would call me Sith, but almost like it almost comes across like he's just choosing to give himself that moniker in a way. Like, I don't know. It's weird. It was just an interesting choice of words. And
Well,
oh, go ahead.
in saying that, it's almost like it's not even like he's saying he's Sith. He's saying that that's what you as Jedi would call me. But
Yeah,
he starts it off by saying that he's nothing. He's so he doesn't believe himself to be Sith at all.
right.
It's just a name that you would recognize, and what you might be able to say you could call me would be something you're familiar with. It'd be like talking to someone in a different language, and you're trying to find a word that they don't use in their language, but something that might be familiar to them
Right.
enough to say that is what you could think of. And that's what it seems like. He's like, well, I don't consider myself that. I don't have a name for what I am, but if you were to call me something, it would be you would call me a Sith. But yeah, I agree in that I don't think he considers himself a Sith per se,
Right.
but he's his behavior is everything that would embody what a Sith is in that respect.
Right. And then, yeah, it was an interesting kind of Easter egg thrown into the episode, the use of Kylo
Mm,
Ren's theme when he seems to heal, who is actually Osha, basically laying there injured. And, given that, and then the kind of overall look of his helmet, which has somewhat similarities to Kylo Ren, and even
yeah.
like when you look at the rest of the Knights of Ren, like the way they all kind of look, he kind of has that similar aesthetic, I guess. It's interesting, and I mean, there's really nothing, I guess, to say there other than I'm just curious to see what connection is being made there and where we go from here with the show and how much we learn in this season about like what was the meaning behind using that theme.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah, because it's done with a purpose. Obviously, no one
absolutely, yeah,
just randomly picked that piece of music just to go at that point.
right.
That'd be very odd. So yeah, there has to be some reasoning to it. And have you heard the name that they've nicknamed him?
I don't think so.
I think it. I could be wrong, or maybe thinking of it differently, but I think they call him Smilo Ren.
Oh, I have heard that one. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I think I read that one somewhere. Maybe today. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
It's interesting. Have you seen the design of the helmet that's supposed to be put out? It has more of a bronzy look to it, but you can definitely see the sort of teeth of it more than I feel like you can when it's at night and shadowed and everything else.
Yeah. It's interesting. So, like I said, I watched the episode twice, and I didn't even think about it when I watched the first time. And then I saw, and I think what you're referring to is Hasbro puts out these Black Series Star Wars helmets,
Yeah.
right? And at first I was like, are these real images? But they appear to be like an actual like release of what Hasbro is going to do as a Black Series, I guess, helmet, like the other ones they release for this character's helmet. But you look at it and it looks like almost gold or bronze, I
Mm-hmm.
guess, like you said, or brass color or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I watch the episode again, it is interesting to see how much the helmet actually does have that color, depending on when you're looking at it and the lighting of the
Yeah.
scene, especially toward the end of the episode. And like he goes to pick the helmet up and it's on the ground and it very much has that look about it. And, so far it has kind of appeared, I think, to most audiences to be like basically black or really dark
Mm-hmm.
gray, but I guess not. And I didn't know if that played into the material that was used to make it, which I forget the name that you already discussed. And I didn't know if
Protests.
that material had a natural like color to it that's or it's just very affected by the light and the way it looks. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was interesting. One other thing I was going to say, I was happy that like, well, first of all, there's that quick scene of how they get him out of the way for a minute, right? Like there's these like weird,
Oh.
like roly poly beetle bug, whatever creatures in the trees, right? And she, earlier in the episode, we had seen that they're attracted to light and she takes her droid, is it called Pip or something?
Yeah.
And she takes that like the head piece off of it or whatever and sticks it on his back that, creates a light to attract these like bugs to him.
Mm-hmm.
And at first, when that happened, I'm like, the way he reacts, and he's like, I got this thing on his back, and he's like kind of flailing at first, like, what is this thing? Or like, I got to get it off. And it's like we have just watched this whole kind of like scene play out of him being a total badass and owning these Jedi, and then it's like he's like, I get this thing off my back, and it felt very like really like.
Mm-hmm.
But at least I was really happy to see it not be like let's end the episode not knowing if he survived, and we clearly see him come back to the ground and
Yeah.
I was like, okay, good. Thank God they didn't like do treat this as like some weird cliffhanger of what happened to him. I was very happy to see that. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah. You know, I did catch that, and I had a similar thought, and it was like, oh, it went from being badass to sort of silly Saturday morning hijinks, kind of in a way.
Yeah, a
But
little
it was
bit.
just kind of like, okay. At least it went by kind of quick, so I didn't think too hard on it. Um, I would say the one thing that I wanted to touch on that I did have a problem with, and it's weird because I was talking about the writing and some of the way that that goes. And last week, I was defending the decision of having May say, okay, you know what? I don't need to do this anymore. I'm going to turn myself into the Jedi and you know, tell them about my, you know, the master or whatever. And so I was like, okay, you know, I could see how walking through and on the ship ride over and just thinking about things and even the impending fight against a Wookiee with a lightsaber, maybe I don't want to do that anymore. That you might change your mind. But then this week's episode happens and Jackie's trying to arrest her, and all of a sudden she's fighting her and trying to kill her. And I was like, wait a minute, like, why wouldn't you surrender at that point if that's what you said you were going to do? That you wanted to go ahead and turn yourself in. Well, here's your chance. Now, the only other explanation to that is that once her master is there, she realizes that that's not a good idea to turn herself over, and so she flees and just trying to get away. But I still don't know why you would try and kill another Jedi in battle, like as you're fighting, because you know the Jedi is not going to kill you. They're just going to try and detain you. So why are you going for kill shots at that point? When at this point you've killed one Jedi, another one has done themselves in, and then the other one was killed by Chimera. So you have one body on you. So I don't know why you're trying to kill another one, but I completely was like, all right, now this is bad because now she's done a complete 360 at this point. She had changed, and now she's changed all the way back to who she was, and I just didn't get that decision and why that happened so quickly and drastically.
Yeah, I don't, because I was trying to remember exactly what her line was from the previous episode, so I couldn't
Mm,
remember like if she said something as specific as "Okay, I'm going to turn myself in." Because
yeah,
I
she
guess
did.
did she? Because I guess the way I
Yeah.
had remembered it in my mind as I was watching the episode was just that she was like, "Well, I've decided I'm no longer going to keep killing Jedi, and I have, you know, it turns out Osha's alive, and I'm just going to not do this anymore, not follow my master anymore." And you know, and to me, as this episode played out, because I definitely thought about that as well, but it was more like, well, you know, it's not exactly like she has just had a total change of heart and she's just like, okay, the Jedi are great now, and I'm gonna, you know, turn myself in and and try to be a wonderful person. And it was more just like, well, I'm not gonna follow my master, but kind of like you said, now that he's here, and she was like, well, I don't want to be caught by the Jedi because the Jedi are not going to survive this, and I just want to get away because she keeps seemingly just trying to escape. Like even
Yeah.
when she's kind of free, she's just trying to run off and get away from all of
Hmm.
it. And I guess in my mind, it was like I kind of bumped on it, but it didn't bug me that much. Like, I mean, the last week I was bugged by just how quickly she kind of seemed to have a change of heart, and I wish there had been more there, like in terms of some character development. That bugged me last week, but this week, I guess it just, I kind of looked at it like, I don't know, she's not necessarily like gonna follow her master anymore, but that doesn't mean she still likes the Jedi. She still seems to have major issues with them, given whatever happened back on her home planet, which there's obviously still a lot of questions left unanswered, which apparently are going to get answered in the show at some point. So that's definitely something else that'll be interesting to learn about as we move along. But I don't know. I guess I bumped on it, but it didn't bother me too much, if that
Mm.
makes sense.
You saying that just made me think now that there probably might just be one more flashback episode in our future. And I could see how that could stretch it out between that ship ride back to getting back to Coruscant, to
Right.
where the Jedi are. So, uh,
And kind of like, I think we talked about this last week in terms of theories of what'll happen with Osha and May, and will there be like a switch, of one of,
mm,
May going toward the light and then Osha going toward the dark. And I would say that
right,
is
right.
definitely very still much in play with
Yeah.
how this is playing out. I mean, it would seem there's a very good chance that he'll talk to Osha and tell her his version of the story, and he could kind of push her to I guess doing his bidding. And then maybe May could talk to Saul and go the other way, who knows, or maybe she'll kill
It
Saul.
has to be something so bad, though, in terms of what he has to say to her and what Soul and the rest of them did for her to turn to the dark side, in my opinion. Because
Yeah,
typically speaking, for most characters that turn to the dark side, it seems like there's already some level of darkness there that they're wrestling with
right,
and they get pushed into it. And they have not, to me anyway, not displayed enough darkness in the character of Osha for me to feel like she has that in her to be pushed to the dark side, um, with a little bit of information, unless it's something that's completely devastating that just would enrage her. And
right.
within that rage, not being a fully trained Jedi and not knowing how to handle it could get pushed into the dark side.
Or do you think it could be the kind of thing where, and I'm thinking off the cuff here,
Yeah.
like obviously the show has portrayed Osha in a way of she hasn't been that close to the Force, right? Or at least since her time as have of leaving the Order, she
Mm-hmm.
really doesn't seem to have any connection to the Force anymore. And it seems like even when she was a Padawan, like she wasn't the best, Padawan. At
Mm-hmm.
least so it's been explained. Could it be the kind of thing where one, depending on whatever Chimera tells her and convinces her about maybe the dark side, like she seems to have a better connection to the Force, thinking of it from that side, and that could help push her. I don't know. Again,
Mm.
I'm just thinking, but
Yeah.
because the show has definitely gone out of its way to like portray her not as equal to her sister in her use of the
Mm-hmm.
Force, and I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. There seems to be a reason behind that, but I don't know.
Yeah. It could be some Jean Grey thing where her abilities have been kind of locked up
Right,
and for her own protection and the protection of others around her or something like that. I don't know.
right. Real quick, I was trying to think if there was anything else from the episode that I wanted to bring up, and I don't think there is. I think that was everything. Basically, a lot of people died,
Yeah.
and again, it'll be interesting to see where the show goes from here.
Yeah.
Yep. With that, unless you have anything else, I think we're going to wrap things up.
Good.
As always, we would love to hear back from all of you listening or watching. You can email us at feedback@flickereffect.com. You can comment down below if you're watching us on YouTube, either live or in the future. If you're not watching us on YouTube, you can find us at youtube.com/Flicker Effect. With that, I'm Dave Lott.
I'm Bobby Jackson.
Thanks for listening.